As you already know, we're doing a segment that is called Real Men, Real Life, Real Talk, in which we're talking to the different men that are out there today, young men just like yourself.
Right.
The issues that we deal with as men, the pressures that we as men seem to be under, the struggles that we suffer with, all the different challenges that we as men are facing in today's world, and how we're dealing with those things. And so I really appreciate you taking the time and sit and talk with me, and hopefully some of the things that you share will also be able to help others who are out there, other young men alike, just like yourself, dealing with the different issues that we'll talk about, help them overcome their situations,
Right.
or give them some kind of guidance, some kind of help. Okay? So one of the things that we talked about early on when we first met was, what are some of those challenges or pressures that young men in our world are facing today? And one of those things that we initially talked about was self-identity, self-image.
Absolutely.
Why do you suppose a lot of our young men are really finding it very hard to grapple with that, to really find their identity?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with, when you hit 18, everything before that, we were told what to do. We were told to get up, get ready for school, here's dinner, here's this, here's that. High school, same thing, whether you're involved with, clubs or activities in school, we were told what to do. We had guidelines, we had a script, if you would, to follow, and as soon as you hit 18, as soon as you hit 19, 20, we struggle because we don't have those anymore. We don't have guidelines, people telling us, this is what you have to do, this is what you got to do now, this is what you got to do today, tomorrow, and we get lost, and as for myself, I felt lost a few times, a handful of times being that, we find our identity in so many things such as work. What kind of job do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Are you making enough money? Do other people think you're making enough money? How do your friends view you? Are you in a cool crowd? Are you, doing, things that your friends are doing? Are you participating, in the things that young men in society says we are supposed to be involved in, such as, clubbing, partying, women, things like that, If we like that, we feel like we're missing something, we're not who we're supposed to be right now, and I think that we're in an identity crisis, because we're struggling with the fact that no one's telling us what to be.
No one's telling you what to be.
Exactly.
So just like what you're saying, because as a young man, before you leave home, you had mom, dad, giving you the instruction what to do, how to do it, when to do it, what to say, what not to say, when you could speak, when you could eat, things of that nature. And so now, as you get older, as you're saying, you don't necessarily have that kind of structure as a young man, that kind of oversight over you as a young man. Now it's about, okay, what do I do?
Right.
What direction do I take? And so now you're at a place of discovery in your life.
Yeah.
And most young men, they discover themselves, if you will, through hit and miss, trial and error. Right? Would you say that's the same, that has been true for you? You've come to your realization of who you are and the direction that you want to go. Was it initially based on trial and error, hit and miss?
I found myself pretty fortunate, as far as I found Christ early, in age, I didn't have to, per se have trial and error because I had godly men, giving me an example of how I should live. But at a time, where, I did feel that way because, I felt withdrawn. I kind of just withdrew myself from that, from that part of my life. So, but when I did, absolutely, I felt lost. I felt like I didn't have any clue. Any clue as far as who I was. I knew what I was like, but as far as who I was, it was a mystery. Being that you try something and it doesn't work, that's not who I am. And I put myself in a situation I didn't like it. Well, that's not who I am. You know, and you're absolutely right as far as a hit and miss thing. You know, it's trial and error. You know, it's good and bad. You know, and I guess that's where we learn. You know, we definitely find out a lot from ourselves.
It's unfortunate that a lot of us, myself included, we take that path early on in life. We go through that school of hard knocks. We go through hit and miss, trial and error. And I believe it's because, you know, the women may get it right. They may have it right on this one, the women out there. They always say that men never like to ask for direction. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely.
We never like to ask for direction. We don't want to ask that question, you know, which way do I go? What should I be doing? You know, what would you say would be ideal for me? You know who I am. You've been around me all my life. You know, what do you think my strengths are? That's a simple question that we could ask each other. But as a man, it escapes us
Exactly.
to do that, you know. And so, absolutely, the young men out there today, not just young men, but men in general as well. There's older men too, who are still at a loss. Now, you said something. You said that you found Christ early, and it was Christ who helped you find your bearing, if you will, who helped you come to grips with who you are and the direction that you are to be headed.
Absolutely.
Now, and that was based on, finding Christ was based on having the right mentoring and the right men in your life to give you that mentoring.
Absolutely.
Why is that so important?
Well, you know, first off is that, you know, when I found Christ, you know, I was literally at a loss. You know, I didn't really have a relationship with my father. You know, so I didn't have a man in my life, you know, showing me, you know, how to do things, you know, how to be a man, you know, how to grow up, you know, kind of attributes I should be, you know, doing for myself, you know, as far as, you know, bringing it to my life and practicing, you know, and and what you just spoke about, you know, as men don't like to ask for direction and help, you know, when I found Christ, I immediately knew that I needed help. You know, I immediately, you know, it hit me that I can't do this by myself. You know, it immediately, you know, just showed me that I'm lost without Christ, you know, and you know, that in itself, you know, helped me, you know, break down that, whether you want to call it pride or just, you know, macho-ness, you know, to ask for help, you know, to, you know, ask, you know, godly men, you know, things. And that's so pivotal because, you know, like I just said, there's trial and error. You know, if another man went through something that I went through, why not ask him? You know, why be so prideful to, you know, deprive myself of a potential heartbreak, potential heartache, you know, a situation when all it is just ask a question, hey, can you help me? You know, and that's exactly what I did. You know, and I don't think, you know, a lot of the people in my, you know, circle as far as family, uncles, grandfathers, dads, you know, would necessarily, you know, been so open with me, you know, been so transparent with me as far as help.
Yes.
You know, and the men of God in my life were helpful, you know, and they understood who they were,
Right.
you know, before they can help me find who I was, you know, and that was definitely, you know, a plus being that they knew where I was at, you know, and it was easy for me to ask for help because, you know, they offered help, you know, and when another man asks, you know, offers you help, it's kind of it can take you two ways, you know, like why, you know, it can either make you feel like, well, why do you think I need help? You know, you think I can do it on my own? You know, it can spark up some bad, you know, some, you know, little tension there. You
Kind of
know,
get swelled up in the chest a little
exactly. You know, a little prideful. You know, I don't need your help. You know, I can do this myself. You know, but you know, when someone approaches you with the love of God, you know, there's no pride there. You know, there's no, for me at least, there was no, you know, shyness. There was no scared, you know, behind my asking for help and needing help.
Right.
You know, so it's definitely pivotal, you know, for a young man to have someone like that in their life.
Yes. So if one person is living a life of chaos, he can't help someone else come out of their situation and to live a better life, because their life is all in a jam. It's in a wreck. They're going the wrong direction. How can you help someone else go the right direction? You first have to come to grips with who you are. And I like what you said. The best way to do that. The best person to help you do that is Christ himself, Jesus Christ. Because without him, you were at a loss.
Right.
And that's where many young men are today. And something else you said, what keeps us lost is our arrogance. A lot of times men do get swelled up in the chest, when you try to help them and say, hey, you know what, young man, let me just tell you something. I've already been down that path. You don't want to go there. What, you think I can't handle it?
Right.
What are you trying to say? I'm less of a man?
Right.
No, I'm just trying to help you out. Well, I don't need your help. What if I don't want your help?
Right.
That's the rebuttal that we as older men get from the younger men. But that's just arrogance, to me that it just doesn't make sense to refuse help when you know inside you need help.
Right.
I went through the same thing. Trial and error for the first 22 years of my life. But it was only until I came to Christ that I too finally realized who I am and how valuable I am in the eyes of the King, God himself, and his direction and his plan and purpose for me. That plan and that purpose is becoming clearer and clearer as the days. Something else that we also talked about that young men are also just having a hard time with. And this is not just young men, but speaking to the young men today is something that is very prevalent and needs to be talked about, and that is their sexuality, meaning sexual perversion, being sexually out of control, falling to that monster temptation that every man suffers and struggles with. But definitely as a young man, it seems to be that there's more pressure placed on you. And so, like you said earlier on also, that the world or the environment or the people that we're around seems to be pressuring you into that mold. And so as a young person, a young man today, you find yourself enslaved to just being sexually out of control. What would you say, why is that such a monster in a young person's life, a young man's life?
It's so deadly. It's so deadly and it's so strong being that, I think at a young age where, I've seen it through my father. My father was, very, very promiscuous with women. Women in and out the house, different women every couple months, and things of that nature. I think a lot of times, morals, is just kind of just not taught anymore. You know what I mean? I didn't grow up with my dad saying be with one woman.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up with my dad telling me, love one woman and that's it. I wasn't taught that way. We were taught to, hey, have fun. Meet some girls, and get to know them as you can, but just don't be too serious with one. You know what I mean? And and I think that's this generation, is a lot of them are taught that way because you hit junior high, what are guys doing chasing girls? And the high school gets worse. Because now you got guys who already caught girls, are trying to get you to do the same thing. Pressure. Oh, you ain't had sex yet?
Right.
You ain't. How long you been with her? You a punk, you this, you that. You see it in videos and music. That being with more than one woman makes you more of a man. And I'll say this, from what we talked about prior. Identity. We don't know how to be a man. So if someone tells me, being with a lot of women, being with multiple women, and having this, having that, can make me a man, then hey, I want to be a man. And if you fall into that trap,